Welcome back, everyone. Today's deep dive is all about energy transition governance.
Uh-huh.
We've got this massive stack of research you gave us,
Yeah.
all about how different political systems
Right.
are tackling the switch to sustainable energy.
That's a big one.
It really is.
Yeah.
So we're going to break down how these different governance models are playing out,
Okay.
around the world,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll look at how they affect public participation
Okay.
in the move to cleaner energy.
It's fascinating to see how many different approaches there are.
I know, right?
Yeah, and how they connect to these ideas about democracy,
Right.
public participation, and even energy justice.
Yeah, so before we get into comparing political systems,
Okay.
what would you say is the biggest challenge
Mm-hmm.
when we're trying to make this energy transition happen?
The biggest challenge is that it's not just a simple swap.
Okay.
Fossil fuels out, renewables in.
Right.
It's really a complete overhaul.
Like starting from scratch.
Right. Yeah, how we produce energy, how we distribute it,
Okay.
how we consume it.
Right.
And for that to work, you need communities, industries, institutions,
Everybody.
everyone on board with this change.
Yeah.
And that's where having the right governance models
Yeah.
becomes so important.
So are you saying it's more about getting everyone on board
Yes,
than it is about the technology itself?
exactly.
Wow.
And we need to be thinking about balancing those needs, the
That-
needs of today with the needs of tomorrow.
I see.
And researchers actually call this the energy transition trilemma.
Energy transition trilemma.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of intimidating.
It is a major hurdle.
What does it mean?
It means we're trying to balance three essential things.
Okay.
We got to reduce those negative impacts of transitioning.
Right.
We have to build a strong new energy system.
Got it.
And we have to make sure it's environmentally sustainable.
Okay, so it's all three of those
That's
things
three.
at the same time.
It's a complex juggling act.
It sounds like it.
Yeah.
Where do we even begin?
We begin by understanding that energy transitions,
Okay.
they're not just about technology.
Right.
They're deeply social and political.
Oh, interesting.
And the way decisions are made has a huge impact
Okay.
on how successful that transition is and whether it's fair.
I see what you mean. So it's like, what's the point of transitioning to clean energy
Right.
if it means some people are going to get left behind?
And that's where this idea of energy justice comes in,
Energy justice.
which means making sure everyone has
Right.
access to energy that's affordable, reliable, and sustainable.
So it's about making sure the costs and benefits
Yes.
of this transition are shared fairly.
Exactly.
So to avoid making things worse, we need these decisions to be made
Yes.
inclusively, transparently.
Transparency is key.
And we need to think about
Yeah.
how different groups of people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that leads us to 5 distinct governance prototypes
5.
that researchers have identified. Autocratic, adversarial, collaborative,
Okay.
reflexive, and inclusive.
5 prototypes, 5 approaches.
Each one has a different way of making those decisions,
Okay.
engaging stakeholders, and allowing public participation.
All right, so let's break down the specifics of each one of these.
Okay, let's start with autocratic governance.
Autocratic, so that sounds like
This relies on centralized control.
very top-down.
Yes.
Does that mean limited public input?
Often, yes.
Okay.
It often involves a strong leader or a single party
Right.
making decisions about energy policy.
Okay.
It can be efficient,
Okay.
but it may not actually reflect the needs of everyone
Right.
involved.
So when I think about autocratic governance,
Yeah.
it makes me think about China
Okay.
and how quickly they adopted renewable energy.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
China's made huge progress in renewable energy
They had it.
because of strong government directives and investment.
Yep.
But as we said, potential drawbacks
Okay.
in terms of equity.
So speed and equity are often in tension
Coffin, yes.
with this approach.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we
Right.
have adversarial governance.
Adversarial. So we're talking about
It's characterized by a clash of ideologies,
Oh, okay.
competing interests, lots of debate
Okay.
over the best way forward.
This one sounds a little chaotic.
It can be.
It makes me think about the energy policy debates
Yes,
in the United States,
absolutely.
where you have different political parties
Yes.
with very different agendas.
You're absolutely right. The United States has historically seen a back and forth
Okay.
on energy policy depending on which party's in power.
Right.
This constant push and pull
Yeah.
can lead to new ideas and technologies emerging,
Okay.
but it also can result in gridlock and delays in taking action.
So potential upsides and downsides
There
to
are.
this adversarial approach.
Yeah, it's like finding that sweet spot between healthy debate and actually getting things done. Let's move on to a potentially less combative model,
Okay.
collaborative governance.
So now everyone's at the table.
Everyone's at the table,
Okay.
industry leaders, government officials, environmental groups,
Everybody.
community members all working together to find a plan
Mhm.
that everyone can agree on.
So the Energy Agreement for Sustainable Growth
Yes.
in the Netherlands,
A great example.
from the research,
It is.
a good example of that.
It's a fantastic example. Back in 2013,
Okay.
over 40 stakeholders in the Netherlands signed this agreement,
Wow.
setting targets for renewable energy, energy efficiency,
Actually,
and emissions reductions.
that's huge.
It was a big achievement for collaborative energy governance.
So collaborative approach sounds promising,
It does.
but are there any downsides?
Well, getting that many diverse voices to agree on something
That's true.
is a complex task.
Right.
It takes time,
Yeah.
and there's always a risk
Okay.
that some voices get lost or compromises weaken the plan.
So even with the best of intentions,
Yes,
achieving true equity can be a challenge.
it can.
Is that where reflective governance comes in?
It is.
Okay.
Reflective governance is all about learning and adapting
Okay.
along the way,
Okay.
emphasizes continuous learning and evaluation.
I see.
Policies are constantly being reviewed and adjusted
Oh, wait.
based on new information, changing conditions,
Okay.
and feedback from stakeholders.
So it's like a system designed to stay on course,
Exactly.
even when the world around us is changing.
Yes.
Makes me think about Germany's Energiewende.
Germany's energy transition is a good example. It's known for its long-term vision,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also shown flexibility and adaptation,
Okay.
learning from its successes and setbacks and adjusting policies.
That's smart.
It is.
Are there any drawbacks to this approach?
One challenge is that all this deliberation
Right.
and reevaluation
Yeah.
can sometimes slow down implementation. And also, focusing too much on the process can overshadow
Okay.
the need for action.
So it's a balancing act again.
It is.
Being thoughtful and deliberate,
Yes,
but also decisive in getting things done.
absolutely.
So that brings us to our final prototype,
Okay.
inclusive governance.
Yes, this puts power directly in the hands of the people.
I like the sound of that. How does it work?
It's about giving people a direct say
Okay.
in shaping energy policy.
Mm-hmm.
This can involve tools like referendums,
Okay.
citizen assemblies, community forums.
I see.
Switzerland, with its use of referendums on energy policy,
Yeah.
is a good example of this.
Makes sense.
The Swiss model gives citizens a direct voice
Okay.
in making those key energy decisions,
That's great.
allowing them to shape their own energy future.
That sounds like the most democratic approach.
It is very democratic.
But are there any challenges?
Well, one challenge is ensuring that everyone's voice is heard in such a decentralized system.
Yeah.
There's also the risk of manipulation or polarization
Oh, I see.
if these participatory processes
Yeah.
aren't carefully designed and managed.
So even with good intentions,
Yes.
inclusivity is something you constantly have to work at
You do.
to make sure all voices are heard.
It's an ongoing process.
It seems like there's no perfect solution then
You're right. No single perfect solution.
to governing the energy transition.
Each prototype has its strengths and its weaknesses.
Are we doomed then to just
No.
stumble through this transition trying to patch together these imperfect solutions?
Not necessarily. The
Yeah.
research suggests that successful energy transitions might actually require a hybrid approach,
A hybrid approach. Okay, so like blending the best aspect
blending those best aspects.
of these different models.
Yes.
How do we make that work?
It requires us to acknowledge
Okay.
that there's no single level of governance
Yeah.
that can handle this.
Right.
We need to think about multi-level governance.
Multi-level. So connecting the global to the local.
Exactly.
So instead of just focusing on national policies
Yes.
or international agreements,
Yeah.
we need to think about giving communities
Give communities the power.
more power.
Yeah, to shape their own energy transitions.
Okay, so this is where mediative governance comes in.
This is it.
Okay, can you break that down for me?
So it's about creating a system
Okay.
where national directives, like
Yeah.
emissions targets
Okay.
or renewable energy standards,
Right.
are balanced with that bottom-up engagement
At the community level.
at the community level.
So national governments are setting these big goals,
They set the goals.
but communities have the flexibility
They have the flexibility.
to decide how to reach those goals.
based on their local situation.
Based on what's happening.
Yes. Think of it this way. National governments steer the ship.
Okay.
They make sure we avoid those major icebergs, like climate change, energy security threats. But communities are the ones that know how to navigate
the local waters.
the local water.
Right. They know what they're dealing with.
They know the challenges and the opportunities.
That's a good analogy.
It highlights how different communities have unique energy needs and resources.
So a rural community
Yes.
might focus on wind power.
They might.
An urban one might focus on solar and energy efficiency.
You got it.
Right.
Mediative governance leverages those strengths and knowledge of each community.
So one size doesn't fit all.
One size does not fit all.
When it comes to energy transition.
Nope.
Okay, I'm starting to see the potential here.
Good.
But how do we actually make this work?
Well, it requires a new way of thinking.
Okay.
A willingness to share power.
Mm.
A shifting how we allocate resources.
Okay.
The research suggests 4 essential steps.
4 steps. Lay them on me.
First, we need to start with communities.
Communities first.
This means giving them the resources and support they need.
What kind of resources are we talking about?
To engage in meaningful discussions about their energy future.
So not just like checking a box.
No.
But really giving them the power.
Empowering them.
To shape the transition.
Yes, in a way that works for them.
So giving them access to information.
Absolutely.
Technical expertise.
Yes.
Funding opportunities.
All of that.
And creating spaces for open dialogue.
Yes, inclusive dialogue.
Where everyone can be heard.
Very important.
Okay, so you get your communities engaged. What's step 2?
Step 2 is about providing the right support at the national level.
Okay.
So it's about setting those clear national policy frameworks and incentives that align with those climate goals while still giving communities that flexibility.
To develop those solutions.
To develop solutions that work for them.
So instead of saying, you must use this technology, this approach, you're saying, here are the targets.
Here are the targets.
You figure out how to get there.
You figure it out. This could include things like feed-in tariffs for renewable energy, tax breaks for energy efficiency improvements, grants for community-owned energy projects.
I see.
Create a system that encourages local innovation.
So it's top down.
Yes.
Bottom up. Working together.
Working together.
All right. What's step 3?
Ensuring communities aren't working in isolation.
Oh, okay.
So building those networks and platforms that allow communities to share knowledge, best practices, even resources.
So instead of each community working on their own little thing, you create a network of communities.
A network.
Okay.
All working together.
That sounds great.
Yeah, these networks would help them learn from each other, share their successes, share their challenges, and really amplify their collective voice.
When it comes to policy discussion.
So moving from competition to collaboration. Exactly.
You like that.
Good.
What's the final step?
This is the most challenging one, but it's crucial.
Okay.
We need to ensure that these community-driven initiatives are connected to the bigger picture.
Right. So we don't want just a bunch of well-intentioned...
No, we don't.
But disconnected efforts.
We need to make sure they're contributing to a just and sustainable energy transition.
At the national and global level.
At all levels.
How do we do that?
We need strong leadership at the national level, a commitment to transparency and accountability.
At all levels.
At every level.
So national governments need to kind of be the coordinators.
They do.
The facilitators, the cheerleaders even.
They do.
For these community initiatives.
And they need to make sure that everyone's following the rules. And that those benefits are being shared fairly.
So that might involve...
It might.
Independent bodies to track progress.
Yes.
Mechanisms for resolving disputes.
Absolutely.
And making sure that marginalized communities...
Very important.
Have a seat at the table.
It's crucial.
Okay, this mediative governance model.
Yes.
It sounds ambitious.
It is.
It sounds complex.
It is.
But it also sounds incredibly hopeful.
It is a path worth pursuing.
Yeah.
And the research does provide some inspiring examples of this model in action.
So we talked about the Netherlands.
You did.
And their agreement. What other examples stand out to you?
Well, the rise of community energy projects in Scotland is a great example.
Tell me more.
The Scottish government has been incredibly supportive, providing funding, technical assistance, and those policies that allow communities to take ownership of those renewable energy projects.
Like what kind of projects?
Like wind farms,
Okay.
hydroelectric schemes.
So it's a genuine partnership
It is.
between the government and the people
It is.
to drive this energy transition forward.
Working together.
What are some of the benefits?
Well, they're generating clean energy. But they're also creating jobs.
Oh, wow.
Boosting local economies.
Okay.
Fostering a sense of ownership and pride.
So it's a win-win
It's a win-win.
for the environment and the economy.
And the autonomy.
Are there any other examples?
Well, even Germany, despite its strong national leadership on renewable energy, has adopted aspects of mediative governance.
So even in a country
that's
known for its
top-down approach.
top-down approach.
They recognize the value of community engagement.
That's encouraging.
It is.
Even there.
They have programs to support community-owned renewable energy projects.
So these examples of mediative governance emerging all over the world
They're popping up.
suggest that this more democratic, participatory approach
Very much so.
to the energy transition is not only possible,
It's possible.
but it's already happening.
It's happening.
And it sounds like it's not just about making the energy transition more equitable,
Right.
but also more effective
More effective.
by using local knowledge,
Yes.
community resources,
Absolutely.
collective wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
We can really accelerate this
Right.
shift to a sustainable future.
That's a key takeaway from this research.
Okay.
The energy transition isn't just a technological challenge. It's also social and political.
And how we govern that transition
Determines whether we succeed.
Yeah. So wrapping up part 1 of this deep dive,
Okay.
we've explored
Yeah.
the energy transition trilemma,
We have.
the need for democratic legitimacy, 5 different governance models.
We did.
But the most important takeaway for me
Yes.
is this idea of mediative governance,
It's a good one.
this blend of top-down and bottom-up approaches.
It's a framework that acknowledges that complexity,
Right.
but offers a roadmap for a more just and sustainable energy future.
Now let's shift gears and talk about what this all means for you, the listener.
Yes.
How can you be a part of this movement towards a more mediative, community-driven energy transition?
That's the big question.
It is.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of this challenge.
Yeah.
To think that our individual actions don't really matter.
I think we all feel that way sometimes.
But the research we've been looking at actually shows the opposite.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So you're saying that even small actions
Yes.
at the local level
At the local
can
scale.
contribute to this bigger wave of change.
Absolutely. Community-driven initiatives can have a real impact.
Okay.
They can influence local energy systems,
Yes.
national policy discussions, and even global trends.
So where do we start?
It all begins with becoming informed and engaged.
Okay.
Learn about the energy challenges and opportunities
In our own community,
that exist within your community.
what are some ways to do that?
There are many ways to get involved.
Okay.
You can attend city council meetings,
Okay.
join local environmental groups.
Right.
You can even just start a conversation
With your neighbors?
with your neighbors about these issues.
That's a good starting point.
It is.
So the more you understand about what's happening in your community,
Yes.
the better equipped you'll be
You'll be better equipped.
to advocate for change.
Absolutely.
And don't underestimate the power of collective action.
Collective action is key.
So join forces with others
Yes.
who share your vision
Who share your vision.
for a sustainable future.
Support local businesses
Okay.
that are investing in renewable energy,
I like that.
or get involved in advocating for policies that promote community ownership of those energy resources.
Aligning your actions with your values.
That's what it's about.
Yeah. And supporting businesses and policies
Yes.
that reflect what you believe in.
Exactly.
I like that.
Remember, creating a better future for everyone
Okay.
is really at the heart of this energy transition.
Yeah.
Make sure your actions are guided by those principles
Right.
of equity and justice.
Equity and justice. So that means,
Thinking about those who are often marginalized,
right.
making sure that everyone has access to clean, affordable energy.
And ensuring that the benefits are shared fairly.
It's not just about switching to renewables. It's about building a more sustainable and equitable world.
Like a big task.
It is.
But it's something that we can all be a part of.
We can.
Okay, so we've explored these different ways that democratic societies
Yes.
can govern energy transitions.
It's complicated.
It's clear there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
But what the research suggests is that a hybrid, community-driven approach
holds the most promise.
But the real question is, how can you, the listener, engage with your community to shape the energy future
that you want to see?
What
does your ideal energy future look like?
What steps can you take
individually, as part of your community,
to make that vision a reality?
These are important questions.
They are.
For all of us to consider.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into energy transition governance.
Great discussion.
We hope this has sparked your curiosity and empowered you to take action.